Hi Sagittarius, Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of Saturn going into Pisces and Pluto going into Aquarius, both happening in March of 2023. So I am a Sun in Sagittarius, and I have to let people know that these transits are going to be different for each individual because of your degree of sun sign, your degree of ascendant, and therefore it's going to depend on that in terms of like where the house placements are divided, your cusps. The rising sign is the cusp of the first house, and that is dependent on your time of birth. So for those of us who are Sun in Sagittarius, we're looking at it from the standpoint of the solar chart, and the natal chart could be completely different. And some people ask, what is more important, the sun or the rising sign, or the solar or the natal chart? And I'm not saying that I'm correct about this. This is my theory, is that the more self-actualized you are, the more the solar chart is going to be what is true for you. Ideally, you'll want to look at both and kind of synthesize them, put them together and see if you can connect some of the transits for each of the planets and how they are connected with both of the houses that they fall into, and see if that like kind of has a consistency to it. But if you had to choose, I think most people it would be the natal chart, because that is dependent on your time of birth. And it's kind of like being born into the matrix, where everything is kind of like this container that is connected to a consensus reality and conditioned reality. And, even though ultimately we want to break out of the matrix, I still feel that it has a certain amount of validity for our day-to-day lives. So you can look at both, but definitely the natal chart can, really be good for just talking about the energy around you on the mundane level. So this is meant to be like just a general kind of a look at the situation. And if you would like a private reading with me, where I analyze your chart and I look at your transits, you can go to my website, rainandmoonastrology.com, and find out more information about that. Okay, so let's start with Saturn. Saturn has been in Aquarius for the last few years. And for Sagittarius, Aquarius is the third house. And Saturn is this restrictive planet. So, I can say this as a Sun in Sag. For other Sages, have you felt a certain kind of pessimism in your life as a whole? Maybe, Sag is known for being very optimistic, but when Saturn is in your third house, you may feel like more serious, but sometimes there's a dour quality to that. Being serious isn't wrong, or doesn't have to be a Debbie Downer situation, but sometimes it can be more pessimistic than realistic. So, this can be for a variety of reasons. Again, even if we share the same sun sign or the same rising sign, we're not going through exactly the same things in life, even if the transits are hitting certain houses that are the same for all of us. It's not going to be the same in other respects. So, that can be one possibility. For some people, you may have been very serious about honing your skills. The third house can be those skills. And even like meditation, because the third house is your mind, and Saturn wants to discipline something. In this case, discipline your mind, organize your mind. Third house can be siblings and other family members, like aunts, uncles, cousins. There may have been some kind of duty that you felt with them, obligation. Maybe you took care of them, one of them, or you might have felt like you had to kind of restrict your interactions with them because of, for some reason. And so the third house can be connected to writing and other communication. You may have felt more serious, taken this more seriously. Sagittarius tend to be writers, whether you're just doing it as a hobby or you actually do it as a living in some regard. The third house can be social media. And for some of you, you may have incorporated social media into your career in some regard, or made it your career. So becoming a YouTuber. Maybe if you have already been in that arena, you have felt like you have been limited, like your voice has been muted. So shadow banning, getting kicked off of a platform, even restricted in some way. And Sag tends to be very outspoken, and in the current climate that we're in, this is not acceptable. I'm going to leave it right there. And so the thing that's wonderful is that Saturn is leaving that area, so you might find that you're able to breathe easier and speak your mind without restriction anymore. But it's very interesting, because if you're listening to this before Saturn officially goes into your fourth house, you might want to practice a social media cleanse, because, like I said, some of you will have different house placements. I mean, cusp degrees, and Saturn may not go into that area when it's supposed to. And so you may have more time with Saturn in the third house, and you can do like a 30-day social media, like going off social media challenge or something like that, because that can help to be a catalyst for doing this on your own. When I talk about these transits, people do these things like limit their time on social media, regardless of whether they're having, Saturn in the third house or the 11th house. But by a person taking advantage of the energy, it really allows them to see how it feels, and then they can implement it on a permanent basis, or, kind of find their sweet spot. So let's talk about what's going to happen when Saturn goes into the fourth house of home and family. So again, that's, for some of you, that's your solar fourth, and this may be more something that is on a level that is not necessarily the mundane level where you're actually doing this physically, but it might be an attitude that you carry more than anything else. So, when Saturn goes into the fourth house, a person may feel more serious about home matters. Sagittarius tend to be quite, freedom loving. And I remember when I was younger, but not even that much younger, I remember being I think like even in my 30s and saying, why do people buy houses? Because it was at a time when, around the age of 30, or even into the 30s, where I noticed that people around me were purchasing homes and doing stuff like that. And I wasn't there. You know, my consciousness was not at that level of caring about stuff like that. And later on, I understood a lot more why people do something like that. What is the appeal of that? And because Saturn is responsibility, some of you may be wanting to lay down roots. Saturn is about foundations, fourth house are roots. So this isn't necessarily tied to a certain age range, because some people buy houses in their early 20s, they just are very driven to lay down roots early on. So if you're listening in your early 20s and you have the dough, you may actually do that. But I would say, especially if this is your first Saturn return. So if your natal Saturn is in Pisces and you're, in your late 20s and you're about to have your first Saturn return, you may naturally feel that you want to do this. Like, it's whether you feel like you have to do it is a different story, but it might even be like symbolic of you settling down. I know as a Sagittarian that when I was going through my first Saturn return, it wasn't pretty, to be honest with you, meaning that I wasn't really happy with how it felt. I don't even think I knew that I was experiencing my first Saturn return, but I just remember that time frame. And I think because Sagittarius enjoy being spontaneous and having that inner child like alive and well, that anything that smacks of growing up can be, not so desirable even. And it can be kind of like a rude awakening that, yeah, I just turned 30. I'm not a kid anymore. And that kind of thing. So I don't know if some of you would agree with me who have been there and done that, but I just am thinking back to those times. And it's interesting because now I'm going through my second Saturn return and I still haven't owned property. So, it's never too late, and you could certainly experience that later in life that you finally own property. And so Saturn is that, I don't know if I call it commitment so much as taking things seriously as it pertains to real estate. For some people, this may involve a parent, a mother, where you may have a sense of duty, a sense of obligation towards her. And when I say that, that sounds kind of bad, doesn't it? Like I'm saying, oh yeah, I'm obligated. But I just mean that you're willing to put aside your needs to take care of her if necessary. Or, some people say the father is the fourth house, and definitely Saturn can be the father. So for some, this may be the father who is the one that you feel a sense of duty towards and taking care of them. But anyway, this could be something that comes up for you, or this could be some kind of a career in real estate or in some, I think even restaurants might be connected to Cancer, the fourth house. I'm not sure about that because Cancer loves to feed people. So I would extend that to restaurants in the next few years. If you're going to open a restaurant, or use your home as, have like a home-based business. Even I could even see something like that, but something in the domestic area. Maybe it's even a daycare center in your home. And in terms of Pluto going into Aquarius, now Pluto has been in Capricorn for over 15 years. And so it is going to go to 0 degrees. I always say 0 degrees and something minutes of Aquarius, because I never bothered to find out the exact minute. But it's going to go back into Capricorn. So we're not done with that second house and what it represents in your life. But it is going to briefly go into Aquarius. First and foremost, this is a friendly angle to you, Sag. This is a sextile, and because of the nature of Pluto being so intense, we need every little gift we can get from that. Not to say that Pluto is something that you should be like concerned about, but simply that it's a very powerful transformative agent. But transformation in the process of it can be quite messy. So being able to realize that you are a work in progress, and not to just look at yourself, at one moment in time and go, oh, wow, I'm like I really need to get my act together here. So let's talk about how it has been in the second house. Now, for me, because this is my solar second, I honestly don't know how it has affected me, other than I think in terms of mindset. I'm much more into the mindset, the manifestation mindset, these past few years since it's been in my second house. And I think that that's actually a very good thing, because let me put it this way. If you are listening to information that also is about you getting off your butt and doing things, sometimes they're making it almost sound like it's just randomly going to appear to you. And I don't think that that's very helpful. But anything that gets you to start shifting your attitudes, and I think, like I had said at the beginning, I do think that the solar influence is more of the consciousness surrounding these issues. So that would go along with that. And this idea of, is wealth even possible for me? Because for many people, they're just praying to like pay a bill or something like that. They're not really looking at the bigger picture of their life. They're kind of living moment to moment, day by day. And this is one of the reasons why people don't save money. They're not thinking ahead. And I'm, of the belief, to be honest with you, that people may experience success by being very pragmatic and thinking ahead, but I don't necessarily like the idea of being like that, because I think it is still too much about doing everything from a third dimensional perspective, and not realizing that we are eternal beings, and it's like the future is the present. That's all that we have is the present moment. And Eckhart Tolle talks about present moment awareness. When people are always planning and they're always in their future, I think it's very hard for them to really even appreciate things that are happening in the here and now, because they've got this 5-year plan and whatever. So embracing having fun in the moment, being able to do things and go places on the spur of the moment, maybe, that's not in the budget. Because if you have something that's too ironclad, like a budget, then you might have this opportunity that comes up, kind of like out of nowhere, and are you going to turn it down because it's going to kind of blow a hole in your budget? I'm not talking about spending money you don't have. I'm just talking about if people are so attached to what they have planned for their future that they never use money as it is intended, as a means to an end, rather than something that ensnares people. I think there's a healthy balance between those kinds of things. So hopefully some of you have also embraced that kind of thing. If this is in your natal second house, then you may have actually had events occur. For some of you, you may have lost everything and are regaining it. And those kinds of things we would call lessons. They're not bad lessons. They're actually showing us that you can always replace possessions, which are also part of the second house. You can always get another job, but you can't neglect things beyond the physical. If somebody is just immersed on the physical level, they can't imagine anything greater, only what they have in front of themselves. So, it's interesting too, because I remember reading somewhere that, some people say, I have a fixed income, and they say it in a negative, as a negative connotation of like, I have limited resources. And what they pointed out is, like, let's say somebody's on Social Security, they have a guaranteed income. Some people don't have that. Some people will work for themselves. They have no idea, how much money they're going to make in a given month. And it can swing wildly from low to high. And that can be quite crazy making. Or if you work for somebody else, you might say, this is my salary, or this is my hourly wage, as if it's engraved in stone. And truth be told, you can ask for a raise. It might be awkward as hell, but I mean, you could do it. So some of these declarations may be something that you challenge, and that would be awesome. I just hiccuped, so that's pretty interesting when I did that. Excuse me. I'm not going to edit that out. So, yeah, and so let's talk about the reason I'm taking so much time on this is because Pluto is going to actually end 2023 in that second house again in Capricorn. So it ain't going very far. But let's talk about Pluto in the third house. Even if you're not going to have it this year, you can anticipate it occurring in the future. So, in the third house, we're talking about the mind. Yes, we could say the consciousness as a higher version of the mind. The third house could definitely be the mundane mind. So when I say mundane mind, I mean how you process information, how you communicate to others. But then on the higher level, what kind of thoughts are you thinking? Going back to Eckhart Tolle, he says that we tend to think the same thoughts over and over again most of the time. And after he said that, I thought about, is he right? Can I resonate with that, or do I resonate with that? And I think that there's a lot to be said about that. And really, Pluto is about transformation. So in the years to come, your mindset can transform so profoundly. And that can affect every area of your life. So keep that in mind. Pardon the pun. This can be one of those transits where you seek out psychotherapy because you want to probe your mind. You want to understand why you have certain obsessive thoughts, why you can't seem to get over certain memories, and self-defeating thoughts. And I would say if it's not straight up traditional therapy, then maybe a life coach, working with somebody who can help you to look at yourself at a deeper level. The third house can be writing. You may write something that is deeply moving, and that could have a ripple effect in the world. Maybe you rise in stature or power as a writer. This can be power struggles with siblings or family members, such as aunts and uncles and cousins. Some people have relationships, for instance, with their cousins that are like their siblings, and relationships with their aunts and uncles that are like their parents. Maybe they were even raised by them, so they have a much more intense relationship with these people. Remember that if power struggles come up and if you are feeling that somebody else is doing this to you, then you can see it as their problem. It doesn't have to be your problem. Also, with this transit, you may become a conspiracy realist, where you are seeing, you're probing everything with a deeper mind. Or you could say a suspicious mind, where you're like, I don't think that's the full story. And you can go down those rabbit holes. But also, you may be wanting to study astrology, the tarot, anything that is 8th house related, shamanism. And this is aligned for that. So, learning how to make your mind into this powerful entity. I don't want to say weapon or anything like that, but something that really helps you transform your life. That could be what you want. And so you're going to perhaps go after certain types of training or whatnot. Okay, that's what I have for you, Sag. There's a lot going on, a lot to look forward to, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.